This archived clip from Make Live is brought to you by DigiKey.
Join us live every second and fourth Wednesday of the month.
Pretty good one. All right, are you guys ready for my jewelry
Yes,
demo?
let's see what you got here.
Okay. So, as many of you may know, I like to make silver jewelry. We can go to the close-up camera and I'll show you a few of the things. Whoa! Okay. So, on the website, you will have remembered seeing me make this Firefox necklace.
Yep.
Anybody in the chat? Firefox necklace,
That's
right?
a popular one.
It's a popular project. Showed you how to cut this out. Well, today I'm going to show you a little bit more. I also make things like this Ascii heart necklace, which is a little more complicated because it's got a soldered bit on it, and that's the part I'm going to show you tonight. The Ascii heart necklace used to be this guy, this big hollow formed thing. Come back to the camera, yeah, okay. So there's this thing, it's big and thick, and I made like a flatter version. I also made this Vicodin ring, right? I've had lots of knee surgery, and I'm allergic to Vicodin actually. So
is this actually Vicodin?
It's actually Vicodin because I can't take it. It makes me sick,
wow.
so I might as well make jewelry out of it. And then other people think it's funny. So when we're making silver jewelry or we can come back to the main camera. I want to show you that there's just some sheet metal, right? I bought some sheet metal. This is sheet silver. This is sheet copper. Both of them are 18 gauge, and I want to cut out a design out of it. So in this particular case, I took the Ubuntu logo.
Yeah, we had a special request on the YouTube channel.
Yeah, I'm just going to show you a little Ubuntu logo there. And all I have to do to sort of cut around it is rubber cement it literally to the surface of the metal. And then I let it dry, and that holds the template to the metal so that when I'm cutting, I can cut just along that line and get my beautiful graphic. So there I'm rubber cementing, and I'm going to put it aside to dry. Once it's dry, it looks something like this. Here's a piece of silver, and I have a little MakerBot logo on there.
How apropos.
Yeah.
How much does it cost the metal?
Silver right now is really expensive. There was a big spike in the market, but copper and brass are not so much.
Okay.
Yeah. How's this better for cutting on the? Yeah. Okay, great. So this piece of equipment is called a bench pin. It clamps to the table. Here's what it looks like. It's got a little flat anvil surface here, and then a wooden surface with a groove in it that makes it easier to get around and work with small pieces of metal. And I just clamp it to the table. And then I put my metal here, and this little groove makes it so that I can cut in between the groove and still have stability on both sides of the metal. And I'm just going to use this frame saw. And the frame saw has an adjustable back, so if I take the blade out, I can make it smaller. And just like your electrode over there in the welding, the blade gets used up because you break it, and you can use it when it's smaller too. So I want to tighten my blade, and this is all in the Firefox video too, so I'm going to try to do new stuff that you guys haven't seen before. So I've got my blade, I'm going to use the Burlife, and then all I want to do is hold my saw completely upright, completely vertical, and then start cutting into the metal, and I'm holding it steady with my other hand. Is that the best camera? There we go. It's pretty good. And getting it started is the hardest part. And then once I get sort of close to my line,
okay,
I'm going to start to curve. And you can always take away material, but you can't add it. So I'm just going to cut up to the line and not quite through it.
Oh, wow, you're really making fast work of that.
Yeah, it doesn't take quite as long as people might think it does.
Yeah.
But it takes a lot of practice. So when you're starting out, this is called piercing the metal. You'll break a lot of blades, and it'll be really slow because of that. But I'm not really pressing against the blade a lot. I'm just kind of bringing it up and down and letting the chomping of the teeth do the work.
Sure.
So there's one more thing I wanted to show you guys about this little piece, and that is how you do interior holes. So this guy has a shape in the inside there, and I already drilled a hole in the interior body of the shape. And the way I'm going to do that is I unhooked the top of the blade on my saw frame. It's hard to see. There's the blade. See how it's unhooked?
Yeah.
And I'm going to thread that blade through the hole that I drilled earlier. And so this is why the saw has the deep throat on it.
Oh.
And I'm going to reattach the blade through that hole in the metal. And now I'm cutting from the inside, right? And I can see here that I'm hitting the back of my thing, so I would just need to back it out and start from a different angle, you know? And you might need to drill more than one hole.
I see.
Okay, so you get the idea about sawing, right?
Yeah.
Great. When you're done sawing, you maybe want to solder, right?
Yeah,
You want to
sure.
do soldering now?
Yeah.
It's kind of my favorite part. So silver soldering is a little bit different than electronic soldering, which I know many of you know how to do. We're going to use this, I'm going to raise the camera up a little. Maybe not. Maybe we're okay like this.
Let me know if you want a hand or something.
Yeah, why don't you come over here and do
All
the
right.
camera on this side?
All right.
You
Okay.
can raise it and lower it.
Okay. Where do you want it?
I don't know, right there's good.
All right. I didn't really move it much. There we
Yeah,
go.
that's
Okay.
It's your editorial eye, Matt.
Yeah.
Okay, so in here I've got some parts, in this little bin I've got some parts for some necklaces that I want to solder. And you can see that here's a part for an Ascii heart necklace, and I've already soldered the piece of tubing on that, and the piece of tubing lets the chain go through and make it be a necklace.
Sure.
Right? So here I have just the 3, and it has no top, and I have tops also in my bin. So I want to join them together. And I'm going to use also flux, a different kind of flux. Where's my toolbox? And for this kind of flux, I'm going to put on my gloves. I think safety's in the top 10, but anything I can do to prevent myself from getting cancer, which is what this stuff is in a jar, cancer.
Really?
I mean also flux, but cancer.
Okay.
I think it's more the caustic chemical burn that you get from that rather than the cancer.
The flux has fluorides in it, so it says on it, it's poison, of course, so don't
Right.
eat it or and like you do get a burn, but it also like really gets absorbed through your skin really easily, this particular handy flux. Don't lick it, I need it, I need to use it. Okay. So I'm going to apply flux with a crappy paintbrush, and I have my flux, and I have my thing, and then where's my little top? Okay, so I want to assemble these on kind of a flat surface. I need a little piece of scrap here, or another piece to prop it up. And I want to prevent oxidation on the whole thing, so I'm going to flux the whole thing. And that'll just make it easier, because I eventually want to make this like a shiny piece of metal.
Okay.
And if it's all oxidized, it's just more work for me later.
Trying to get you painting it.
Painting it? Oh, sorry.
That's
Okay.
right.
So here I've put flux on the pieces. I'm going to arrange them on my little soldering surface here, just using this other piece as a little prop.
What is that block that you're using underneath it?
The block that I'm using underneath it is just like a fireproof, it's a fire brick basically.
Right.
And it, prevents the table from getting burned.
So
It absorbs heat.
Would a piece of tile work?
Maybe, if it won't crack under the stress and then break and then explode everywhere into your eyeballs when you're not wearing safety glasses.
So it would work.
Maybe,
Yeah.
potentially.
There's a Ustreamer asking if you could just dip it in the
Yeah,
flux.
totally. Yeah,
Okay.
you can dip it. Sometimes I just do that, dip the whole piece in. Okay, so now I've got my flux on, and it's time for the solder. And you can get solder in wire form or chip form, and the chip form is just the wire chipped up into tiny little pieces.
Oh, wow.
And it's mostly silver, and with a little bit of like lead or tin in it to make it flow more easily. And I'm going to use some special tools. My cross-locking tweezers. It's tool anatomy time for jewelry making.
Those are fancy.
They're cross-locking, which means they're closed, and then when I squeeze them, they're open. Which means
Oh.
they cross and they lock. So that means when I pick up a piece of solder with them,
Clever.
it just holds on to it. And then I can drop that piece of solder, and I actually didn't pick one up, I don't think.
You have to have pretty good eyes to do this, I think. It's
Yeah, and I have a head-mounted loop. I didn't bring it because I was too embarrassed because it's really dorky looking. But it's like a set of magnifying glasses you wear on top of your head, kind of like the welding mask. But
W.C. Wells is asking if you have a preference over wire or chipped.
this
solder.
honestly is the first time I've worked with this brand of chip solder. I haven't worked with chip solder in a while, and it was cheaper than the wire I was seeing when I bought supplies for this demo. The wire solder is okay, but when you chip it, it goes everywhere. So you have to you have control over the size of the chip, but you don't have this is easier because it's already done for you.
I see.
All right, so my solder it's on there. Can you guys see it? Maybe not.
So tiny.
So tiny. But trust me, there's solder in sort of just resting where those two pieces of metal join. And the fun thing about the flux too is it kind of helps hold the pieces touching because there's like a liquid surface tension thing going on. Okay, you guys ready for the fire?
All right, I'm ready. More fire. Or more.
More, yeah, it's fire. Fire. That other thing is fire too. Okay, so I'm just going to apply gentle heat over the whole thing, and you're going to see the flux is going to bubble, and sometimes that kicks the solder.
Let's see if I can get in closer here.
And sometimes the gentle heat will it'll bubble, the flux will bubble, and it'll kick the solder out of the joint, so you just have to keep an eye on it. And just like electrical soldering, I'm going to try to evenly heat up the two pieces that are being joined together independently, and so that the solder flows evenly between them. Because that piece of tubing is a lot smaller than the Ascii heart, the number 3, but the stem of the 3 is really small. So if they don't heat evenly, the solder is just going to pool on one side or the other. Here it goes. It's going. Ready? All right.
Okay.
It's soldered now. Okay.
Sorry, we don't have a macro lens on this, but hopefully you
It's
can
a
at
little
least
blurry.
get an
It's
idea
soldered.
of what's
Well,
going on there.
you can see that now, and now it's hot, just like before.
So
Look,
that's
it
just a
stays
regular-
together. Woot,
okay.
woot, woot. And so what I do when it's hot is I put it in some water, quench it. And then, oops.
I got it.
Okay, and then we can come back up to the main camera, and I wanted to talk to you about what to do with it next. Okay, so both of these metal pieces are hot, so I quench them both, put my fire brick over by Hackett. He seems to like it. And I'm going to grab my pickle.
Your what?
My pickle. So after you've soldered, even though you used flux, I used flux, I still get some oxidation. So you're going to see that it's just not shiny, and the surface treatments I'm going to do require that it be clean. And so I'm going to use this thing called Pickle. Doesn't it look really tasty? And it's a mild hydrochloric acid solution, and it's in this crock pot here. It's heating up. You can see the steam coming off of it. And I'm just going to plop my pieces right in there. Anything that's been touched by the flame is going to have oxidation on it, and I'm going to get rid of it with the pickle. So I leave it in the pickle for a couple minutes, and it comes out pretty shiny and ready to do the next thing. In fact, I don't really even need to leave it in there for very long because I fluxed it really well. Pickling is kind of the solution to a lot of problems. If the thing has a lot of tarnish on it, if it, like the pickle gets rid of everything that's on it.
I have a question.
Yeah.
In metalworking, often...
Come into frame to ask the question.
Okay. I have a question, which goes back to metalworking. If you want to remove rust or galvanization off of steel, if you're about to weld it or do whatever to it, you usually use muriatic acid,
Which is hydrochloric acid.
which is hydrochloric acid, which is the same as that.
Sort of. This is a couple other things and a mild hydrochloric acid.
Okay, with if you put an acid treatment on something to get the rust off or to get the galvanization off, as soon as you take it out of that, it almost immediately starts rusting. Does the
does.
same stuff happen with silver?
Yeah, silver oxidizes a lot less quickly than things with iron in them because it doesn't have that the iron in it to react with the oxygen. But yes, and as soon as silver is always oxidizing, but it's pretty slow. Copper's a lot faster.
Okay.
So I'm going to do the next thing now. Are you ready?
Okay, I'm ready.
Next thing. So now I've got these pieces, but I want to get. We can do the close-up camera. Yeah, bring it over here. I want to get from this and this, these pieces, to this. Shiny, pretty, everything, right? So I need to file it and sand it and finish it up. And I can polish up those, the solder too. The solder joint needs a little bit of cleaning up. So I use these things. It's tool time again. You ready for another tool?
Yeah.
These are called needle files.
Okay.
And they're just tiny little files, and they have a bunch of different shapes. This one is a square, this one's round, this one's half round, this one's triangular. So I can use the triangular file to get into some really small corners, right around near that solder joint I just made, so that you can't even tell that it's there. So there's you can't even see it, can you? There's a big glom of solder on this side.
Someone keeps asking about the torch. It's just a regular torch.
It's a butane. It's like a creme brulee torch. It's a really heavy duty creme brulee torch.
You know, this is the exact same. A friend of mine once had one of these and took it apart. This is the exact same torch that you could get at McMaster. I think you can get at Radio Shack, but it's just got shiny stuff on it.
It's got shiny. So if you look on Amazon, I think I got this one on Amazon. If you look, there's a bunch that have the same torch head but a different handle. Somebody probably in China makes the torch, and then a bunch of different companies resell it.
Package it for.
But often the ones that say creme brulee torch, it's the exact same torch,
Exactly
except the
the same.
shiny makes it cost more.
Right.
So,
Right.
and you can use your soldering torch for creme brulee
That's what I like to do because I like to both solder and make creme brulee.
at the same time.
See, I don't like single-use tools, so that was my justification for the torch. Okay, so I'm filing.
While you're filing, someone's asking. Now you can't just use a soldering iron. You have to use a torch.
You have to use a torch because you need the soldering iron only really heats up where it's touching the metal, and you need general heat. You need to heat the whole thing.
Okay.
So here I'm using the part of the bench pin again to like get in here, and I'm doing like spiling the sides perfectly flat, perfectly straight up and down, and then I might chamfer the edge to make it like a little more appealing for a necklace, right? So it doesn't scratch you.
So going at it like an angle from the surface. I see. Okay.
And then it's time for sanding. So I would file this a bunch more, and then I would sand it. And I start with, I use wet dry sandpaper, and I start with a big grit. And for a big grit for small jewelry like this is 400. So I would start with a piece of 400 grit sandpaper, wet dry, and the wet dry makes it actually it's really great. You can just dip it in your water, and it cleans off all of the metal filings in the sandpaper. So this takes a really long time, and you asked me the other day, how long does it take to make that Firefox necklace? Well, it's not really a fair question. If you're mass producing jewelry, you can make a lot of jewelry at once for like the same amount of effort. You can stack the silver together and cut multiples at once. And then for sanding, this is gonna take me for frickin' ever. So I have a sweet tool, it's like rotary hanging flex shaft with a little mandrel on it that spins the sandpaper really, really fast, and that helps make this a little bit faster. But you do have to wear a dust mask while you're doing that, because you don't want to inhale silver filings into your lungs.
Sure.
Heck, it might.
Why not? And they'll be silver plated on the inside.
Silver plated on the inside.
And you get extra attention during your autopsy.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's like you're
aluminum
supposed to
from the
tip people.
antiperspirant, and then
You're supposed to tip your coroner, and you do that by the silver filings.
They reclaim the silver. And
Yeah,
sure.
It's
now
only
that they're not
polite.
doing silver fillings anymore, okay.
Get it from the
Breathe it all in. So then you sand it, and we have a clip from the Firefox necklace video where you can see how I sand with that the flex shaft, which is a really cool tool too. But it was a little big to bring today. I want to show you guys one more tool, and that's my here's the sanding. More filing.
Filing.
Sorry about the different shapes. See, this had a macro for this video.
Yeah.
So here I'm using the mandrel. So it's like a Dremel on steroids, right? It's this big
cool.
motor, and then has a shaft coming down from it with whatever bit you want on the end. And this one has like a little slotted mandrel for sanding. And then when you're tired of sanding, you use the tumbler. All right, that's good. So watch the Firefox video for more of that stuff.
Yeah.
the
tumbler then aids in like polishing and burnishing the finished pieces.
There's some stuff in the chat where people are saying like, no, you should never use chemicals to remove oxidation. You should use a wire brush and flap wheel. That's not even close to true. On a piece as small as these little letters, if you use a wire brush on it, it will tear it apart. It will just be gone.
Yeah.
Also with softer
I have a brass
things.
brush that I use sometimes, but that's for finishing. It's not
Yeah.
for removing oxidation. The pickle is for removing oxidation, and the sandpaper.
Right, but it also, like there's nooks and crannies and things. It's gonna be really hard to get in with a brush.
Exactly.
Chemicals can get in anywhere.
Yep.
Stuff like the brass brush, you need that from a specialty store. Muriatic acid, you can get it at any hardware store.
Exactly.
If you want to take galvanization off, an issue with that is that when something is galvanized, which is it's plated in
Zinc, right?
zinc, tin, whatever, a mixture of metals, it's also on the inside. How are you going to get a wire brush on a grinder inside of a piece of conduit? I don't know. I don't think it's possible.
Yeah, so chemicals are the answer for that kind of thing.
Yeah, they're dangerous, but you know, don't be an idiot.
Yeah.
Don't hurt yourself. Everything's dangerous. Wear a helmet.
So then it's time for finishing. So if there are any more questions about what I just did,
Someone was
making the
asking
thing.
if they could use a Dremel for.
Yeah, totally. And I
Yeah.
drilled that hole in the little MakerBot logo I was cutting. That I just used a Dremel. Yeah, the
Oh,
flex
cool.
shaft is just, it's like I had a Dremel and then I wanted to do more production stuff, and the flex shaft is like it's a luxurious tool. It's really nice.
Mm-hmm.
You'll really enjoy metalworking. The one thing I wanted to say about getting started in this stuff, because there is so much tools to work with small
Right.
jewelry, is find a shop or a community college that does a class. I actually learned how to make this kind of jewelry when I was in high school. I had a class. Here's the first thing I made. Can we go to the close-up camera and I'll show you? It's not the very first thing, but it's one of the first things I made is this amber
nice.
ring. And it has like a hole in the back of the bezel so that you can see the amber through it. It lets the light shine through. I only got a B+ because of the solder joint on the back. Isn't so great. But really, like, because the tools, you need so many tools, I would
Yeah.
say go find a class to take. And then if you're really into it, you start amassing things and asking for tumblers for Christmas, and it's just all downhill from there.
Right, like any other of these hobbies that we have.
But then we wanted to get to finishing.
Oh yeah.
So when I make jewelry, like it's good to just make the silver jewelry, but then it starts to oxidize. And so like in a week from wearing a necklace, you'll start to see that it starts to tarnish. So you want to do things to sort of lengthen that time between polishings. And there's like a surface treatment you can do, this nasty, nasty chemical to treat your jewelry. And so I went to over to Lamore Freed's place over at Adafruit. She was working on her eye necklaces, the little power button necklace, and the pendant's made out of, you can roll the video while I'm talking. Yeah, the pendant's made of machined aluminum, but the chains are silver. And Lamore's like, oh yeah, we can just put them in. I'm like, no, you need to protect these from tarnish or you're gonna have yellow chains in no time at all. So I went over and I brought her my tarnish shield and we put we treated the chains. So she's wearing goggles because this stuff is really nasty. You don't want it in your eyes. And we were very well ventilated area with a fan blowing directly over it in a way. And we soaked it in this chemical, which basically like treats the surface of the silver. It's not a coating. It's a treatment that kind of makes the top layer of molecules less likely to oxidize. So we just rinsed it off. Then it's safe to touch, and you dry them, and they're ready to be made into necklaces.
Cool.
It's pretty nice, right? We have the finished, yeah, there you go. It's good. So I also have some chain that I didn't protect. I brought it with me to show you how yellow it gets.
You can kind of see that on camera, I think.
You can see that it should all be shiny and it's not all as shiny, right? Some of it's yellow because this just like sits in a bin. And then when I'm ready to use it, I will dip it in, guess what, the pickle. And it'll help remove. I also have some tarnish remover and then I'll keep working with this.
Cool.
Yeah. So there's metalworking by me.
Cool, thank you for showing
Yay.
us that.